morning, guys. So today we are gonna talk about the sine law. So the sine law is used when we have oblique triangles. So to find the measure of sides and angles in oblique triangles using the sine law. So we're moving from right angle triangles, and we remember that from our previous lessons that we use right angle triangle. We use SOHCAHTOA for right angle triangles. So an oblique triangle, what's the definition of it? It's any triangle that does not have a right angle triangle or a 90 degree. Does not have a 90-degree angle. Angles are across from their corresponding sides. So remember that when we name our triangle, we name, like, let's say angle A in capital letters. Side A is across from angle A. So across their corresponding sides. So when do we use sine law? Remember, the first thing, it has to be an oblique triangle, right? So a triangle that is not a right angle triangle. If you know two angles, and any side, so again, you have angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle, you can use sine law. Now, with the first one, angle, angle, side, if let's say you have this triangle right here, right, and then they give you this angle and this angle, and let's say this side, right? Let's say they gave you this side. In order to use sine law, you must have the opposite angle. So you must have this angle right here. But to find this angle, you have to use the sum of angles to find the third one. So you have to use 180 minus this to get you that. Because again, in sine law, you must have an angle and its opposite side. We'll look at examples like that. So the formula says, in order to find the side, in order to find one of the sides, you have to use the following formula. So it's A, so side A, over sine. Remember, it's sine law, so sine law uses sine, angle A, equals to side B over sine angle B, which also equals to side C over sine angle C. Okay, we use this one to find an opposite side. So you use this one to find an opposite side, not an opposite angle. We'll look at another formula that we use to find the opposite angle. And when you're using this is called the sine law. When you're using it, you only have to use two of the three ratios. So you either use A and B, or use B and C, or use A and C, or you don't use all three of them. You just use two, depending on which angle and which side are given to you. All right, I guess this doesn't save it. So let's now If you know two sides and one corresponding opposite angle, so if you know two sides and one corresponding opposite angle, it has to be an opposite angle. If it's not an opposite angle, then you can't use sine law. Then you can use sine law. So I'll show you this. So you must have, let's say if this is your triangle, right? You must have a side. Let's say if they give you this side, I'm gonna call it A, okay? And they gave you the opposite angle A, so you know this. And you know another side. Doesn't matter which side you know, right? And then in this case, you can solve for angle B. So you can solve for this angle. Okay, so you have an angle A, it's opposite side. You have side B, and you're looking for the opposite angle B. So you can use the B and the A together. So this is the formula that we use. It's similar to the other formula, but it's the reciprocal of it. So that means we have to use sine on the top. This is when you're solving for an angle. So sine A over side A equals sine B over side B, and then sine C over side C. Okay, again, same idea. You only use two of them. So in this case, because I know A and I know B and I'm looking for B, so I use the first two, which is sine A over A and sine B over B. Okay, so these two formulas, sine A over A, sine B over B, sine C over C, or the reciprocal of it, which is A over sine A, B over sine B, and C over sine C. This is the sine law, and this is what we use when we're solving our triangles. So let's look at some examples. So the first example tells you find the length of side D. Okay, we can name the triangle whatever we want. Like, I mean, this triangle is named ADF. The sine law will stay the same. It will be sine E over E, sine D over D, and sine F over F. It's not gonna change. It's the formula that's important, not the name of the angles. So let's look at this. What do I know? I know angle E, and I know side E. I know angle D, and I'm looking for side D. So since I'm looking for a side, I have to use the first formula that we have seen. So I have to use where the side is on the top. So in this case, I'm gonna name them E and D. So I have this formula. So E over sine E equals, and then because I'm looking for D, so it's gonna be D over sine D. Okay, so I wrote the formula that I'm using. Now, all what I have to do is I have to plug in my values, so the given values, and I have to solve for D. So you see that side E is 38 centimeters, so it's going to be 38 over sine 95 equals to side D, which I don't know, divided by sine 40. Okay, so now to solve for D, all what I have to do is I have to cross multiply, right? So if I multiply, half cross multiply. If I multiply sine 40 by 38, then I leave D by itself. So I would have this. So I would have 38 times sine 40 divided by sine 95 equals to D. So if you plug in this in your calculator, you're gonna get an answer, any answer. Remember, because you're looking for a side, your answer has to be to one decimal place unless the question specifies otherwise. So the answer for this would be 24.5 centimeter. You must include your units, otherwise you will lose marks for that. So that would be 24.5 centimeter. Okay, so this is how you solve for a side. Okay, easy. Now, how did I determine that I can use sine law? I can use sine law because number one, it's an obtuse triangle, so there's no 90 degrees. Number two is because I have two angles and one side, so angle, side in this case. And I'm looking for the third side. The important part here is I have an angle and its opposite side, and I'm looking, and I have another angle I'm looking for on the other side. Now, question B is telling you to find the measure of angle C. So as you can see here, I have angle A, which is 59 degrees, and its opposite side, which is side A. I have side C, but I don't have angle C. So I'm looking for an angle. Since I'm looking for an angle, I have to use the second formula, which is, in this case, I have to use sine A over A equals sine C over C. That's the small c. So I just fill in the blank. So sine angle 59 over 19 equals, I don't know what sine, what angle C is, so I'm going to write sine C over 12. Similar to the other question is, all what I have to do is I have to half cross multiply, so I just multiply the 12 by the sine 59. Over 19 equals sine C. So you can see here that if I do this on the calculator, I'm going to get a decimal. I should get 0 point something. So you'll see that when you enter this on the calculator, so you do 12 times sine 59 and then divided by 19, you should be getting 0.54136 and so on and so forth. Because this is sine C, basically I'm looking for sine C, so I'm going to have to leave my answer to 4 decimal place as of now. So I can write 0.5414 because I have to round up, equals to sine C. Now, remember, I am looking for angle C. I'm not looking for the ratio, right? So I have to do one more step. Remember, anytime we're looking for an angle, we have to do the inverse. If you remember on your calculator, you have to do the second or the shift button. So you have to do sine inverse of 0.5414, which would give you in turn angle C. So if you do sine inverse on the calculator, you should get 33 degrees. And remember angles, I leave them to the nearest degree. So angle C is 33 degrees. Okay, so again, ask yourself the question, is it an obtuse triangle? Yes, it is. So I can use sine law, maybe. I have to see what I have. Do I have an angle on its opposite side? Yes, I do. Good. Now, since I have an angle on its opposite side and I have a side, so I'm looking for an angle, which means I have to use the sine over the side formula. Okay? Now, this is a triangle, so find the length of x and y. So it's asking you to find the length of x and the length of y, given that angle x is 83 and angle y is 35. So they gave you two angles and they gave you side z, so side 26. Okay, so you see that they want you to find side x and side y. So there's more than one job that we have to do here. We have to do two jobs, but we have to do them one at a time. So looking at this, I know the two angles. I don't know the third one, but I know the side of the third angle. So I must, this is a must, I must first find angle Z. So angle Z equals to 180 minus 83 and minus 35. So this is the first step that you have to do in order to be able to solve the problem. Otherwise, you can't solve the problem. So angle Z is equal to 62 degrees. Good. Remember, sine law, in order to be able to use it, you must have an angle on its opposite side. And now I do. Now I have an angle on its opposite side. So good. What do I want to solve first? I can solve x first. It doesn't matter which one you solve first. It's still going to give you the same answer. Okay, so let's say I'm going to solve x first. So I have, since I'm solving first side, I have to use the x over sine x equals 2z over sine z. Okay, so if I fill in the blank, I don't know what x is over sine 83 equals 26 over sine 62. Okay, remember the rule of you just cross multiply. So it will be x equals, I'm not gonna write that, just I'm gonna say it and you guys can write it because I'm having problem writing here. So it's 26 times sine 83 divided by sine 62. So again, it's 26 times sine 83 divided by sine 62. So your answer for this should be 29.2. And that will be in inches since my, this is in inches. Okay, so I already solved for x. Okay, so that's half of the question. The second part of the question is you have to solve for y. So I have to do exactly the same thing, but instead of using x over sine x, I'm going to have to use y over sine y. So I'm going to write this here. So it's y over sine y. What's sine y? Sine 35. Equals to z over sine z. So 26 over sine 62. So this is my next step. Now again, same idea, just cross multiply. So multiply 26 by sine 35 and divide by sine 62. So if I do that on the calculator, so again, it's 26 times sine 35 and then divided by sine 62. You guys can write that down. So the answer would be 16.89, but because I only want to leave it to one decimal place, so that would be 16.9 inches. So that answers my question, 16.9 inches. So as you can see, I have found step number one, I found the angle Z. Step number 2, I use my sine ratios to solve for side X, and then I used my sine ratios again to solve for sine Y. Okay, so that is it for this lesson. I am going to leave you with this, guys. So you're going to do the homework on page 31, number 5B, 6C, 8, 11, 12, 13, 15, and 17. And I will hopefully see you guys on Tuesday. And I'll see you guys on Tuesday, and I will go over the cosine law. Okay, so for now, you're just responsible for the sine law.